Hello, everybody. This is Robert Linkul, and you were listening to Aging with Strength. This is episode number 4, and we are going to be talking about old school core strength training, basically the sit-up and why sit-ups and our core, a little too loud, why core-based exercises are just a thing of the past and really doing more damage to your back than good. So if you've joined us in the past, we have gone through some of our common practices. We're going to take a little break from that today, and we're going to go through this topic as it's become a little bit more of a pressing matter, I guess, if you will, of an issue for me lately with some of the clients that I have. So, as with tradition, I love that noise. Topic number 1. Why do we do core strength, and why is it seen that the only way to get your core strong is to produce a burning sensation that allows you to think that you're working the muscles that you get? And that's basically what it comes down to for the most part with a lot of my clients. They say, I don't really feel it. And that's where they like to do the sit-ups and the crunches and the leg lifts and those types of exercises, V-ups, because they can feel a sensation of work being done that will give them a pride at the end to say, I'm making my core stronger, I'm making my back healthier, or whatnot. So first thing to think about is that really what is being achieved? Is that really what's happening? And the answer is no. The inverted C position is basically what I call it, is the front aspect of the body, your chain of muscles. There's posterior chain, we hear about that all the time, and then the anterior chain, or the front side of the body, is the inverted C. And if you've seen these individuals, nothing wrong with these people, they just need some assistance with the way that they're programming their workouts. I've seen individuals that do the C muscles, the ones that you can see. So basically those are your quads, your abdominals, your pecs, and your biceps. Those musculatures get overdeveloped from bench pressing, doing all the ab work we're talking about, leg lifts, quarter squats, and a lot of bicep curls. And the body begins to come from this really nice vertical, clean-looking position of good posture, and it starts to invert and it starts to hinge forward into a seed position because that musculature in there is overdeveloped and overly tightened, and it's all on the anterior aspect of the body. And if you don't work mobility and then try to build strength on the backside of the body that will counteract that, it's basically the front's going to start to win and start to pull you forward. And so when we talk about the back specifically and the core work that we do, the crunches, the sit-ups, the leg lifts, the origin of the musculature that helps produce all that movement are your hip flexors. The origin of that come off your L3, 4, and L5, basically the lumbar spine of your body, which in my opinion, and this is, a lot of people will debate and talk about mobility versus strength and stability versus mobility and so on. I feel like the lumbar is not supposed to be mobile. It's not supposed to be limber. It's not supposed to be able to be manipulated. And what I mean by that is like chiropractic adjustments and such. I think your lumbar, if it's left alone and it's kept in good condition, will stay very tight and structured and compound. And that's why the vertebrae are so much bigger while the discs in between are so much thicker and they have so much density to them, is because they're supposed to be the strong stabilizing center point of all of our movement. And I kind of jokingly say, like, if you were going to puppet someone, if you were going to grab onto someone and move them like a puppet, where would you grab? If I could put my hand straight into your spine and hold onto your lumbar, I could manipulate and move your whole body from that spot. So to me, that's the origin of movement, is from the lumbar. Now, we're not talking about center of mass and balance and all that. I'm talking about just the origin of movement, our structure, okay? So for me, that's the lumbar. Well, based right on that spot, you should have mobility of musculature around that, up to the thoracic spine, down to the extremities, the hip and all that. That's where all the mobility and movement, everything comes from. But to be mobile and to be strong and to have some kind of foundation to pull on, you're going to have something that's stabilized. So that's the lumbar, okay? And that's where I'm coming from. So based off of that, your hip flexors originate off of those lumbars, off the little facet joints and the wings that go off the side. And they run up through the front of your hip, and there are these little framing, these little holes where the tendons and the muscles kind of run up through, and they get up to the front aspect of the femoral head, and they kind of insert along the front and the superior aspect of your thigh, of your femur. And so when you contract that musculature to do a sit-up, a crunch, or a leg lift, the lumbar has to stay in place, be anchored, and then don't move. And we're going to pull over this angle pull is not very efficient. It's going to pull over the front aspect of the pelvic bone and down over the head of the femur, and then grab onto the leg and try to lift it up from here. And that's either going to do your leg lift, like if you're hanging onto a pull-up bar, lifting your knees to your chest, or if you're laying on the floor on your back doing leg lifts or V-ups, something where you're contracting that core to get you to fold yourself in half or even start that movement. It's originating at your lumbar. And so you'd look at this and say, well, that doesn't sound so bad. Why, if that's structurally sound and it's holding you in place, isn't that actually making that area that you're saying needs to be stronger? It is for 1 or 2 or maybe 3 reps until your musculature around the lumbar is no longer strong enough to hold it down in place. But we don't do sets of 3 on sit-ups. We do sets of 30. And then we add med balls, and then our friends stand on our feet and they push us back down, and we throw med balls, and we hold 45-pound plates. And we have to do 1,000 of these every night because you read about it in some Jane Fonda book that's what you need to do. And you have to do side bends, and you have to do sit-ups. So please don't lose that butt. You have to go through that whole process. Sorry, Sir Mix-a-Lot stuck in my head. You have to go through all these different, so bad, all these different abdominal movements so you can feel like you worked, like you trained your core. And in actuality, you've done more damage after the 2nd or 3rd rep, because now that lumbar that's supposed to be kind of stable and stabilizing and holding you there is now starting to give and anteriorly displace while you're pulling on it every time. And so we'll start to see excessive swaybacks, people with their butts sticking way out and their chest way up nice and high because their hip flexors are overdeveloped so much it's pulling them forward, it's tilting their pelvis, their butt back. We'll start to see people that are experiencing hip and lower back pain because the lumbar is actually getting yanked anteriorly out. You have vertebrae that kind of stack, not like Legos where they're vertical and they're perfect. They kind of stack like on an angle. They go, there's the bottom L5, and then like L4 kind of sits on top of it. Maybe, obviously this isn't accurate, but, an inch or 2 in front of that. And then there's the L3 sits an inch or 2 on top of that. And so you have this little curvature of your lower back. Well, from years and years and years of pulling on that curvature can get excessive, or you're pulling down so hard trying not to let your back curve that it starts to go the other way. It starts to flatten. So years of this can start to cause a lot of damage, either on the pull of the origin or the pull of the insertion, and starts to create this overdevelopment. And so the back starts to basically take all the damage from this, okay? Now, all this started, 50s, 60s with calisthenics in the military, even earlier than that, back to World War II, where they did just a ton of abdominal work like that to make sure everyone was strong enough to carry their core packs and their weapons and all that through. But as it got more mainstream, late 70s, early 80s, Arnold and Sylvester Stallone and, bodybuilding and all this started to come along. That was the way to train the abdomen. So this really cool study was done. There have been a lot of them. This is just the one that I recognize here. It was called The Rising Prevalence of Lower Back Pain. And an individual that did this was Freeberger, and there were, et al. There were another 7 or 8 individuals that were part of this. And it shows the prevalence of lower back pain on the rise with a 14-year period from 1992 to 2006. And it was such a big study. That's why it's still very relevant today, because it covered so many years. And I'm sure that more have been done since then, but this was just a very base component of just asking questions to individuals. And they found that 80% of Americans were experiencing lower back pain. And from the survey results and the process they went through of surveying all these people, there were thousands of people they were surveying when they went through this whole thing, and then followed them for the 14 years. There was an estimation that from the 80% of those that experienced it, there were 149 million days of work lost, as it's the second most common reason to call in to work that you're not coming is because you've hurt your back. Okay. I think number 1 was that you were sick, but I think number 2, it didn't say that in the thing. I'm just guessing. But number 2, as this listed, it was because of your lower back. So 149 million days work missed during this. And it was established to be an estimated, depending on the business, between 1 and 2 billion with a B, $billion lost or spent on these lower back injuries, lost from the business because their employees weren't there, and then spent on the other side for the individuals having to treat their lower back pain. And a lot of that can be accompanied, or it can be focused on, or I don't want to say that training the lower back, training these core exercises causes lower back pain. A lot of it could be attributed to the idea that we've weakened ourselves in doing some of these movements because it was such a big thing, okay, through the 80s and into the 90s with Taibo and, core flex and all these other exercises, all these other routines where you saw the bicycles and the Tony, all the Tony Little and all these things where their bicycle kicking and their leg lifting. And it was all about this core strength and development here that we've kind of built people to a point where they believe that is core strength training. And so when you continue to do that year after year and you basically develop yourself lower back injuries because of that, you can't help but to look at these stats from the 90s on, and the individuals that were experiencing all these exercises and such to all have these lower back injuries. I know you can't draw a direct correlation, but I look at that and say, like, okay, I can see where this was part of the issue. Okay. So I'm not going to blame it all on that. I'm just going to say that I think this could have a big component to do with it. All right. So during that time, you have all those dollars lost and all those people, injuries that occur. Every time I get on a rant about this and I start to talk to someone, they go, well, what am I supposed to do? What could these individuals have done that would have prevented these lower back pain, but still, or lower back injuries, but still develop the core strength? And so my favorite way to answer that is, if you envision someone that has like perfect posture and has a good, strong core, what do you envision? And almost always when I just bring that topic up, when I say, when you think of someone with good posture, you see that individual I'm speaking to stand up a little bit taller, and you see them lift their chest up a little bit and they pull their shoulders back and they stand with some pride, a little bit more like, oh, I'm supposed to be here. Someone mentioned posture. You see that. Next time you're in a room, talk to somebody about, boy, I really need to work on my posture. And you'll see everybody else go, whoop, and they'll straighten up a little bit. It happens all the time. Okay. So try that out. It's fun. And so when we look at somebody and say, like, what do we feel like looks like strong posture or strong core positions? We address the idea of standing tall, shoulders back, bracing the core, feeling tight. Well, that position is the bracing position for most movement. When we think about anything athletic, you start to kind of stick your butt out and get into the athletic position, but shoulders back and your chest is up and you're in a powerful position ready to do something. If we're going to plank, you're going to pull your shoulders back, chest up, anchor in, core tight, and you're going to hold yourself for that. If you were to carry implement something that was heavy, you wouldn't slouch and let the weight slosh you from side to side. You'd stand up nice and tall and pull your shoulders back and brace against the weight. You see this routine, the same thing I'm saying every time. When we think of good posture, that postural position and its ability to transfer right into exercise and athletic movement, it correlates very well, because we know what healthy, good-looking posture is. But on the opposite side, when we're doing all these crunches, leg lift, sit-ups, we're doing exactly the opposite. Shoulders forward, chest down, hips together, and we're only contracting one aspect of the body, where with the good posture, standing up tall, we're contracting the posterior side of the body, and the anterior is now the antagonist, the support system. The back side of the body is holding us up. That's the agonist. All the musculatures or the chain on the back side of your body are holding you upright and keeping you in a good posture. And the antagonist, the muscles on the front, are basically stabilizing and holding themselves so the backside can do its job. So now when you go to grab something, let's say you're carrying 2 milk jugs or water bottles, or you're carrying your kids or whatever it is, as you carry and you brace and you put yourself in that good postured position, your spine is stacked up nice and tight. The musculature around that is supporting it. Your shoulders are in the right spot. Your weight's centered right over your hips, so your butt's carrying the load. And now you're ready to brace and transfer weight, to plank against weight, to squat with weight, to press weight over your head. Those are all the positions, the key components that we go through with every single plane of movement or every single component of fitness that we look at. You've heard from me many times, our push, our press, and our pull, and then our split stance, our hinge, and our carry. Okay, those are 6 components of movement. But the majority of my clients I work with take out horizontal push with my older adults and then put in a training modality of fall prevention, something we work on quite a bit. Those components in one modality, those are the things that we truly focus on a daily basis with every single workout. But with each one of the exercises in there, the postural component to that is key. That's what puts people in the right spot to have their core tight, their shoulders aligned, their posture up tight to do whatever it is that I'm about to ask them to do. So if we're going to say that's good posture, then that's the position you want to be in to do anything athletic. That's the position you want to be in to move any kind of weight in any other direction. Why would we then train ourselves for core strength, the thing that we're addressing most important here, in the exact opposite direction. You see what I'm getting at? So just because you can feel it working, air quotes, doesn't mean that it's actually beneficial for you. I have this joke, and my clients always look at me goofy, and I say, LSD feels good, but it's not good for you. I have no idea. It's just a saying. But I know LSD makes you trip out, and then afterwards your body doesn't feel so great about it, so I've heard. But the point being is, when you do something for your body in a moment, it might feel like, I'm doing this is good. If you have a lower back injury and you're standing up straight and you continue to round your back over like a cat, in that moment of doing that movement, you might find a little bit of relief, but in the act of doing it, you're causing more damage upon the return. So that action of rounding your back into the wrong position with gravity pulling on it, though in that just one instant of doing that, you're feeling relief or something that feels decent, you just caused more damage by doing that. An exceeded range of motion into an exposed position of your lower back, you're causing the problem. But in the moment, it feels good. That's what I'm talking about here with the core. Anytime we crunch, sit up, leg lift, anything where we are putting our pelvis closer to our sternum, more or less inverting that C of the body, we are putting ourselves into a position to maybe in that moment feel a burning sensation like we're working, but it's doing us harm. And in some cases, great harm, okay? I gave you the medicine ball example. I had a 300-pound Air Force shot putter strength coach that would stand on my feet with a 30-pound med ball, and I would do a sit-up, and he would shove me back to the earth as hard as he could. And we would do sets of 30 or 40 of those 3-4 times a week. I would do a sit-up med ball throws, throwing a 30-pound med ball off the floor, doing a sit-up, catching it, and going back down again. I would sit on a bench with someone standing on my feet, and I would lean back to 90 degrees. So now I'm parallel or horizontal to the floor, right? And I would grab, or parallel to the floor, I would grab 2 45-pound plates and do Russian twists, touching the floor, rotating all the way around, touching the floor on the other end. I did so much, in my opinion, really dumb shit now, okay, things that really were bad for my back, that caused my back injuries, that caused my hip injuries. But in the moment, I said, I'm getting stronger. This feels good. Without knowing any better, without looking in the anatomy and going through that and then reading any kind of research, I was just super stubborn and stuck in my ways. As I'm so much more open-minded now, but I'm very open to research and seeing that there are more efficient ways to do things. I was not back in the day, and I caused all these damages to my body. Okay, but it all resolved around the whole sensation of I feel this. When you carry heavy weight and you carry it a long distance, and all you really feel is your grip strength giving out, you don't feel like your core is doing a lot, but it is. You are holding upright. I had a gal today. She's probably 110 pounds, carrying 55 pounds, 56-pound kettlebells in each hand. And she goes, I don't understand how this is making my core stronger. I said, you're carrying you. You are carrying yourself. And you just walked down 100 yards and back 100 yards and sat down and said, my hands are starting to get slippy. You didn't say my core is weak, my back hurts. You just carried yourself down and back. That's fantastic. Okay. Ideally, we want to make that stronger, but to be able to keep your core strength and hold that kind of load and carry it for that kind of distance, you're damn strong. You know, I got another gal that was a rower, and she talked to me maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago, or 6 or 8 months ago. She goes, I need to do more core work. I think my core is really weak. And I was like, client, I hope you listen to this, because it's one of my most recent clients. I absolutely love her. And I said, client, you just did a 300-pound hex bar deadlift for a set of 8, 4 times. Okay, so I'm not great at math, but I'm pretty sure that's 32 reps with 300 pounds on there. And that's like, I don't know, 9,000 plus pounds per. I mean, that's a lot of load that you just moved. If your core wasn't strong to be able to do that, then your component, your whole body is this core component. It's not just my six pack, right? Or my keg. It's not just your abdominal region. It's your whole body creates core strength. Now, if you can hold that weight and do that many repetitions and hold in good posture, okay? And not to mention, over and over again, like that many times, you're damn strong in your core. That is fantastic core strength. I don't care how many times you can lay on the ground and crunch up 6 inches. That's got nothing to do with core strength in my mind. That has to do with muscular endurance of your abdominal region. That's all that it is, okay? So there's this mindset that we have to change of how do we train our core It's our ability to keep our body upright, to have the backside of our body help us keep in a good postural position with everything that we do. And if you ever trained with me, or if you're listening, you do train with me, you know this to be true, that I am on every single person, every single second of the tiniest detail, where your shoulders are, where your hands are, where your elbows are, all this alignment stuff, all this proper posture. I will not let you go heavier until you can show me that you can keep in the proper postures. All develops core strength to keep your body in good shape and good health. And that's what applies into life. You show me a life and death situation where you're laying on the ground and you have to crunch up 6 inches, and I will give you a reason then to train for it. But other than that, I have so many other options. I'm being facetious, by the way. I'm giving you so many other reasons and so many other options of things that we are going to train you for, from playing with your kids to carrying your groceries or going on a hike to working in your yard, all these different things. These are all core components that need to be developed in that way. Okay. So long story short, I think I made my point, or at least I hope I do. If you have any questions, always comment below. Please feel free to share this podcast or webcast if you're watching the video. Please feel free to share this with friends, family members, colleagues, anybody in your circle. I really want to grow this and get it up to a point where a lot of people are finding some good value, and I'm getting some requests for some topics, because I've got about 90 things that I'm going to talk about, and then after that, I'm going to run out of stuff. Kidding. If you know me, I'm long-winded. I never have a shortage of things that I want to talk about. So coming up here on our next episode, we're going to get into power training for older adults and how you're not supposed to do that, because you're going to get hurt if you move quickly. I'm going to show you why that's actually BS, and that it's actually really good for you to learn to train to move quickly. So we'll dive into that. This is, as always, my pleasure to be here to share this information with you. Thank you for being here. This is Aging with Strength with Robert Linkul, episode number 4, old school abdominal training, why sit-ups, leg lifts, crunches, and such are really not the way to go. Don't just rely on what you feel. Rely on what you are capable of producing and performing with your really good posture. That's what's going to keep your core strong, your body strong, and your lower back healthy. Have a great day. Thank you.